Today, we should begin hearing closing arguments in the Hitman for Hire trial of Charlie Adelson. And I don't know what evidence the state will stress, but I think that an overlooked gem in this case is Wendy Adelson's ex-boyfriend, Jeff Lacasse. They only dated for 9 months. Jeff Lacasse, his story has not changed. And according to him, Wendy said, "Can I tell you something in confidence? My brother," meaning Charlie, really did look into hiring a hitman. And I think that Jeff Lacasse is a hard witness for the defense to impeach. He doesn't have a dog in this fight. He did not benefit from the murder of Dan Markle. And he looks like a deer in headlights in his interview with police. The only anger that I've ever seen from Jeff Lacasse in the past 9 years is that he thought that Wendy Adelson was possibly trying to set him up as the fall guy for her ex-husband's murder. And that's reasonable. That's justifiable anger. After Jeff Lacasse, I think that the biggest thing that the state has going is the change in Donna Adelson's life. She's no longer fighting Dan Markle with her daughter Wendy. Suddenly, Dan Markle is no longer a problem. He cannot ever be a problem again for Wendy Adelson. And Donna is with her grandchildren, it seems like daily, very, very involved in her grandchildren's lives, which probably wouldn't be going on if Dan Markle had not been murdered. And I think that the state should stress even more how vested Donna Adelson was in Wendy's divorce. And this was a contentious divorce, 700 pages of motions flying back and forth, everything from arguing over a tennis racket to parenting time. Luis Rivera. Luis Rivera, I think, is a good witness for the state. Luis Rivera, he flipped early. He did receive 19 years. And whether we like to admit it or not, facing life in prison is a reason to lie. The defense would be malpractice for the defense not to bring up the deal that Luis Rivera got or the consideration that Katie McBonawa hopes to get. But Luis Rivera has shown himself to be a great witness. He is straightforward. His story has not changed, and he's very matter of fact. And I think that Luis is actually a great witness for the state. I think that Luis saying that he told Sigfredo, "Why don't we just rob the lady?" I think it's powerful. Much easier to rob Wendy Adelson than driving to Tallahassee to murder Dan Markle. I think that just because one is a Latin king doesn't mean that they don't have common sense. If it's all about money, why not just commit a robbery? As a juror, I think it would also matter to me that Charlie Adelson did not call the police. He's afraid of Latin kings. He said that he believes that Luis could reach out and touch him even behind bars. Well, I think the state should point out that Luis, his life is in danger because when Luis turned state's evidence, when he decided to cooperate and to testify against Sigfredo Garcia, another Latin king, Luis's life was in danger from his own gang from that moment on. There's no smoking gun, right? Charlie doesn't admit to murder for hire on any wiretap. And I think that the state can use that to its advantage. A murder for hire is the person that's pulling the strings, that's paying the money, is in itself insulating that person from the actual event, from the actual crime. And that's what Charlie Adelson, according to the state, did. He's insulated through Katie McBonawa, Sigfredo Garcia, Luis Rivera. Charlie says that whatever happened in his sister's divorce did not have a huge effect on his life. And if I was the state, I would say that the Adelson family wanting to pay Dan Markle $1 million to move to Miami does or would have had a huge effect on Charlie's life. And that Charlie is the family fixer. Not only is he the family fixer, he is the financial guru in this family. Charlie, remember, wanted everybody to know he makes more money than his parents. And I think that Charlie, the state should really stress, made the decision that it would be a lot cheaper to hire a hitman than to pay or offer to pay Dan Markle to move to Miami, because Dan Markle was still going to be a problem. He would have gotten the money if he accepted the offer, Dan Markle, but he still would have wanted to be involved in the day-to-day lives of his children. And Dan Markle, being an observant Jew, observing the practices of Judaism down to the diet, I think was a huge problem. Donna Adelson referred to Dan Markle as a religious zealot. And that would have always been a thorn in the side of the Adelson family. And when Donna Adelson, the state should stress, is upset, she calls her son the fixer. And Charlie sees himself as a man who has the answers. And Katie said it on the stand. Charlie thinks he's untouchable. So, Jeff Lacoste, the extravagant gifts, Charlie insulating himself by hiring someone else, I think are all points that the state should make with this jury. Finally, there's Charlie's reaction to the bump. Charlie, the state pointed out, was very upset at the thought of being extorted after his mother was approached. But he didn't have the same reaction on July 18th when Katie McBonawa came to him and said, my friend murdered your ex-brother-in-law and my friend wants over $300,000. Keep in mind, the Adelson family had just found out that day, the same day Dan Markle was murdered. I would think that your head would be spinning. Your ex-brother-in-law has been murdered. And Charlie never contacts the police. He just hands over $100,000 to Katie McBonawa. He doesn't know if this friend really exists. He doesn't talk about investigating this at all. And he didn't make a move to protect his family. His sister is afraid. He would have been afraid, according to Charlie. He was afraid for his family. He was afraid for his young nephews. And he didn't contact the police. I'd like to mention Dan Markle's parents. Dan Markle's parents lost their son violently and suddenly and tragically. Dan Markle was not pronounced dead until 14 hours after he was shot twice in the head. And when they lost their son, they lost their grandsons. And 9 years, it has been 9 years that Dan Markle's parents have waited to see just one of the principals be put on trial for their son's murder. And that's Charlie Adelson. And Dan Markle's parents are still having to deal with the fact that a jury may come back with a not guilty verdict, that a jury may come back and say that it is hung, that it cannot make a decision, which possibly there would be a retrial, just like the Markle family had to deal with Katie McBonawa, and that Donna and Wendy Adelson are still unindicted co-conspirators. The time that Dan Markle's parents lost with their grandchildren cannot be replaced. And whether you believe that Charlie Adelson orchestrated this murder or not, I think that Dan Markle's parents deserve all of our sympathy. And I really, really hope that they can someday have a relationship with their grandsons.